Hey, everybody, it's Ty Fisher. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have Tim and Jen Orendorff, Orendorff Studios. It's a pleasure to have you guys today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't you guys start by telling us a little bit about you, your studio, what you specialize in, years of business, etc.
You gonna let me go?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's always eager to let me do all of the heavy lifting when it comes to the video and chats and all those sorts of things. So Tim and Jen Orendorff, we have Orendorff Studios. We've been in business since 2011. We started, I think Tim really got his start with some automotive photography. And those of you who have taken automotive photos know that there's not a whole lot of money in that. You just do it because you like it. And then we did the typical, if it's in front of us, we'll photograph it, and quickly learned what we don't like to photograph. And then we did weddings for a decade and learned that we like high volume sports much, much better than the wedding industry. So we got into sports in 2016. I think I looked back in our archives. Mainly because we got a trader card from our nephew's baseball team, and the tree line behind him was in focus, and he was not. And Tim's like, I can do better than that. So we stuck our toe in the volume game, tried it out with a local baseball league. Really had no idea what we were doing. He knew lighting concepts. I knew business. We put it all together, and fast forward to 2024, we're doing, and that was all traditional style, paper order forms, cash, the old school way. And fast forward to today, we're compositing everything. We have 2 stations sometimes, and processing like 3,000 images a month or something to that effect. I just got your bill this morning, so that was a fun email to open for the business that we did in May.
You were busy.
Busy is not quite the right word. I'm going to call it spring sports chaos, and anyone in the industry knows exactly what we're feeling with that. And like we just said, before we hopped on, we have crested, and we are coasting through June.
Yeah. So what part of the country is your studio in?
We're in South Central Pennsylvania. We're in York, Pennsylvania. We're about 45 minutes north of Baltimore for the, region.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So York County, mostly suburban, rural area. The big city is, like 40,000 people or something. So it's pretty small, but we like it here. We can beat all the major metro areas in like 3 hours or less. So it's a nice little hub to kind of springboard off of, but mostly serve York County.
What is the landscape of your demographic? Do you deal with is there a lot of photographers in your area you're competing with? You guys pretty well own the area. What do you see out there?
So it's kind of a 2-part question. There's a ton of photographers in the area, but they're not doing high volume composites the way we do high volume composites. There's a handful that are still doing traditional style, and there's even less that have dipped their toe in for the composites. But I would say over the last, really since COVID, when we switched over to composites and we switched over to an online ordering system, we've gotten a little bit of name recognition here in the area, which is nice. And then parents get upset when their kids go to middle school and they have to use the school contract company, and they can't get Orendorff Studios for their photos, and then they'll bring their kid in for their own special photo session because they don't want the, cookie cutter, here, go stand up against this, field area. Or in the basketball, a mom sent us a picture of a girl, and they did basketball photos indoors, totally normal, but
it was even in the gym.
It was in the basketball gym,
but the background was the exit door with the exit sign. You couldn't even see the hoop or anything in it.
It had no relation to it whatsoever.
No,
No.
it was just generic exit of the gym.
And because of the way it was lit, she was 3 different shades of color.
Yeah, her skin tone. The lighting was terrible. The background was terrible. Everything was terrible. The best part is she came home to her mom and said, "Hey, we had photos at school today for basketball. They're going to be terrible. You need to call Orendorff's." And that's when we knew.
Like the mom even made a meme for us where she took the big box store picture and put it beside ours and then labeled it on whose was whose and sent it out to all of her friends.
Yeah.
So
that was fun.
But I've always I heard it from somebody where photography is one of the only businesses where somebody can pick up the equipment and automatically call themselves professionals without actually doing anything.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Tim. The word professional, the words professional photographers, most people don't even know what professional photographer stands for. And if you really look it up, you must accrue 80% of your income stream, your personal income stream from photography to be considered a professional photographer. It has nothing to do with gear, knowledge. It has more to do with income stream. But as we know, it has to do with gear and knowledge, but more so knowledge of the gear.
Right.
Right.
You know? So it is a crazy thing that you can, when I had my 2 studios in my small town, I bet there were 30, 35 other photographers, all part-time,
Mm-hmm.
all of them very little knowledge, and it showed in their work. And, I think the thing you find about that, I think a lot of people get started because people tell them their photos are good. And hey, would you do my kids? And all of a sudden it kind of just spirals into that. And the problem is, unless you have a true desire to actually educate yourself, build a business infrastructure, you're about 3 years in this and you're just like burnt out, until if you're not putting the pieces in place, you do see those newer style photographers that are just doing it more as a hobby kind of fall by the wayside after about 2 or 3 years, just from lack of making money, burnout, etc.
Well, yeah, because they're not charging enough. One, because their skill set really usually doesn't warrant charging more. But then you're doing all this work and you're doing all this work and you're making peanuts, and then you're just jaded. So
yeah. And I think it's sad because I think in any field where there is an independent creative, people find it hard to justify their worth. And I don't know why that is. Profit is not a dirty word.
No.
If you can provide a great product with great service, you deserve to make whatever you can make. It's
Right.
part of free enterprise. It's part of the American dream, And
people spending money on luxury goods, why not?
Right. And obviously, you've got a studio, you've got your cost of goods, you've got your cost of services, you've got that all broken down into insurances, payroll, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And all those have to be factored in before you pay yourself. So those are some things that new photographers really coming in have to really pay attention to. And sales tax. A lot of them don't even look at the sales tax laws.
Oh, yeah.
Sales tax laws in Ohio is pretty much anything you do as a service is sales tax. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a tangible asset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pennsylvania is a little bit more gray. Some services, from what I understand, some services are taxable, some services are not taxable. And we've just always been on the side of caution and just it just gets sales tax. I'd rather pay too much to the state than ever have them come back and be like, hey, so for 10 years, no one wants that phone call.
No one wants the tax man.
It's a really scary letter. No one wants that really scary letter from your Department of Revenue. So it's, yeah, or they don't meet with a tax professional or an attorney and they're just kind of winging it. Insurance. Oh my gosh, the amount of people that I see in different photography groups. And there was actually a girl here locally, I would call hobbyist, that's trying to make a little bit of side money. And she had all her gear stolen out of her vehicle when she was at her son's baseball game out of town. And I'm like, yeah, that's what insurance is for. So, you kind of get to that threshold and yes, it costs money, but starting over with zero gear costs way more money.
Yeah.
And, the 60 or 80 bucks a month that you're going to spend to have it all protected.
Yeah. So kind of getting back to, you were doing 10 years of weddings and then you kind of then dipped your feet into the volume sports photography. And yeah, we're talking the traditional, old school paper order forms. I'm sure these were traditional photos, either natural lit or a couple lights throwing some light at them outside, potentially.
Always lit.
Yeah, always. There was always lights.
So Tim has.
I think the only thing that I really ever shot natural light would have been the automotive stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really leaned into the off-camera flash very early on. A lot of photographers just kind of stay in that natural light realm, for a long time. But we found that, and you have so much more control over your setting when you control the light.
Absolutely.
So, when we were shooting these traditional, I think, for example, like a soccer league, the team that comes at 5:30 is going to look different than the team that comes 30 minutes before sunset, just because your light has changed, significantly since those first teams.
Well, we even had teams that would kind of request to come to the later time, so that way they had more of the sunset in the background.
Right. Dramatic lighting.
The up a little bit higher.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing with the composites is now everything looks the same. We don't have to worry about everything is metered. So if we shoot a makeup session indoors at our studio for a league that we photographed outside, the Friday before, they're going to look exactly the same. No one's going to know that Susie and Johnny were not at the same, photo day, which is really nice.
It is nice. When you're shooting your virtual group, so you kind of moved into composites and started shooting virtual teams. When you go out to photograph your sessions, are you strictly outdoor, strictly indoor, or a mix of both?
So our preference is to shoot indoors whenever possible for a variety of reasons. One, I jokingly call it Pennsylvania because it's always wet here from, January through December. But you can also control other things like wind or excessive heat. We get these crazy heat waves in mid-September, and you're trying to photograph fall ball and they're dying, or you're worried about our equipment overheating and that sort of thing. So our preference is to shoot indoors whenever possible, outdoors as a last resort, either under like a pavilion.
Well, it's a lot nicer for having some of the outdoor sports inside, because that keeps the coach from having practice. And the kids coming to us already sweaty from practice.
Right.
And the parents are like, why do they look like that? I'm like, because coach wants to have
practice prior.
Right. Because your 8U baseball team is going to state. So you need to have every last minute of practice possible. Yeah. And, we don't have to reschedule. So it's, just try to shoot indoors whenever possible. We do have a studio space here that we can utilize. We pitch that as an option for those who are, within a reasonable distance of our studio. And we're not going to have someone come 45 minutes, to schedule here unless that's their preference.
And this is like a makeup, right?
For makeup. And we've scheduled leagues here too.
Yeah, we have a couple leagues that they're
learning the way.
They're local, so they're only like at most maybe 15 minutes away that they're like, we'll just come to the studio.
Yeah, which is really nice because then you don't have to pack anything up and shove it in your car and
Absolutely. It's nice when they come to you.
yes, yeah, it's super nice. So you can just leave the station set up and everyone comes through and you know we get hundreds of people through the studio looking at the other stuff that we do, the dog portraits and seniors and more examples of our sports work. So it's kind of self-serving as well, but it's really nice that you don't have to shove everything in the back of my Volkswagen and take it across town and set it
I
up.
really don't like putting up easy ups.
Oh yeah,
They're not easy.
no.
Is that what background do you guys shoot on?
We use a Angler
Highlight?
highlight wall. Yep, they're the same as the Manfrotto highlight wall. It's just like
half the price,
way cheaper.
Yeah.
And I scored 2 of them on Black Friday for like half price. We didn't even need them. I just ordered 2 because
good to have.
Yeah, no, they're still in the bag that they come, like the plastic bag.
Yeah.
That they come in here at the studio.
Yeah, we use them hard and they, they're not going to last forever, but it's nice to know that I have an extra one for when that fabric seam around the metal finally, breaks the whole way through and the metal's sticking out. I can just, pull the new one because for a while the Manfrotto ones were on back order after.
Yeah. That happens all the time. It seems like the beginning of every season, everybody orders up what they need.
Yeah, after like SPAC and imaging, they'll go through a rush of people heard all this stuff at their education conferences. Sure. They go on and order them, and then there's no more to buy. Which we like the Angler. I think they're easier to set up for me. But
I agree. I tested the Angler last month. I did some test work with our team when I was with them in India. We took a couple anglers there. We've been teaching them how our clients work, so they can be relatable to you.
Right.
And the angler's nice. I was quite impressed. So, yeah. How do you handle your makeup sessions? There's so many people that have so many different ways of doing this. Some are we don't do them.
Yeah.
Some are we'll do it. I'd like to hear your.
Yep. So traditional was easy because there was no makeup. Like you were either there or you weren't. And then as we were growing, we were able to be really accommodating. Like, oh yeah, just give us a call. We'll schedule a time to come into the studio. And after 2023, when things were really, getting crazy for us, it was holding up production. If we were waiting and waiting and waiting and being accommodating and trying to say yes to everyone, we've gotten to a point now where we will schedule, the league photo day, and then they will know ahead of time when their makeup session is. So, we have a photo session.
Well, this spring it was photo day, and then the parents had a week to contact us to come into the studio to get their makeup photos done. We've changed that up a little bit going into the fall, where Mondays and Fridays at the studio are going to be makeup days. So you can either come before or after your shoot, depending on where your shoot lands. It's either going to be a Monday or Friday. And then once that Monday or Friday is done for your shoot, there's no more makeups.
Okay.
Yeah, because we would be getting these phone calls on the 6th day and like, oh, well, I can't come in today. Can I come in next Monday? And, you don't want to say no to people, but we've gotten to the point now where, it just holds up production, and we're not doing prepay anymore. So we're not making money until we launch graphics and galleries. So that needing to reel that in has been even more urgent, because you're not sitting on this, prepay cushion.
Right.
We could be a little bit more flexible in the makeups and, sending everything out, because then people don't realize that there's other steps. Once we do that, it's selecting your images, sending them out to Rabuku for extraction, and then, creating all of our graphics. We use Pixnub for our graphics creation, and then we use Blueprint for our gallery sales.
Okay.
Just finally got everything set with Blueprint for the spring season, and it has been tough but awesome. So anytime you change your process completely, it's a little painful, but it's so much nicer that so many more things are automated through the Blueprint system versus, we would take prepay orders, and in a true prepay fashion, you would just fulfill whatever came in. And now with our with the Blueprint setup, we can create more graphics. We can use both poses. We can give them basically too many options, and then they can see everything before they make their purchase. I basically just release everything to the print lab, and then in a couple business days, I get a box from the print lab with envelopes in it and get them out for distribution, and everybody's happy. We've come a long way from our origins of, we used a local print shop initially just because they were available. We knew them. And way back before we even knew Pixnub was a thing, we were hand typing names onto Photoshop files, exporting as JPEGs, uploading to their system. And to think of that now, we just couldn't do it that way with the volume that we've grown, but it's awesome that those resources are available to continually, improve and, make ourselves stand out from the others in the area.
Yeah, I want to touch base on that a little bit because you and I talked a few weeks back about some ideas you have that you want to implement for our team creator service.
Yes.
And I'd like you to speak to that a little bit if you could.
Absolutely, yeah. So the one that we were talking about previously, the carrot on the stick got changed, and their deadline.
That stick got really, really short.
Yeah, the stick got really, really short, so we didn't have time to really mess around with that. But basically, we take the concept of the photo day individual photo session and pitch it to corporate teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say an attorney's office or financial advisors, or the group that we have now is a funeral home in the area. And we will photograph them all individually like we do for sports and send them in for extraction through Rabuku. And then Tim will build a team photo with, these adults in their corporate team. So and we basically pitch it the same way. Like, everyone doesn't have to be here at the same time. There's an attorney group that we work with where they have staff from all over the country, and then they'll come in, I think once a year, every 6 months for like a corporate retreat. And as those people come into town, they get photographed and added to their team photo. So they have staff from California and Florida and Illinois that are all in this local team photo and didn't have to all be together. And the corporate teams really like that because, in this day and age, people aren't staying at jobs for 10 years. They might be there for 6 months or 2 years. And then you can update that photo pretty easily from, session to session with additions and, Joe's no longer with the team, and you take him out of the photo and add in, Susan and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to be working with on you is kind of emphasizing more of that team creator to that office creator, because people do use it for that, and it makes good sense. And I think, the goal is you're going to be working more with us on us doing the kind of office group creations. And we want to work with you also on getting that word out there. You talked about doing some speaking and stuff. So we're going to be looking to sponsor you and help you with that and move that process through. I think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good source of like alternative income for, sports photographers when for us, really, it's February, early March, and like July is kind of like our off season now, where you could market and pick up some of these, really basic mini sports jobs, and we couple it with corporate headshots to, increase the value, from an income perspective. but it's nice to have, that additional basically side income for when you're not in, what I call stick and ball sports season. So,
Yeah.
or I guess Bob Kenward calls it stick and ball. I picked it up from him.
Well, and also the beauty of that team creator is you can get the layered PSD back with the office group. So if someone quits, you can simply easily replace it. We don't have to rebuild this all out. So it makes good sense, and I like the idea. And we're going to be featuring more of that on our website as we work with you on this process as well.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it for a while, and I was telling Tim, I was like, there's no reason other people shouldn't be doing this. I mean, for us here, there's no one else doing that at all. But there's no reason our other, colleagues in the sports industry can't be doing that for, if they want, as an add-on for their volume work, because you already have the infrastructure to light the subjects, in that scenario. There's really no difference between a T-baller and an attorney from a, photo standpoint, just, transitioning it over to that corporate landscape and then charging accordingly for it.
So 14 years in the business now, 2011, you guys, that's quite a success. That's
way to make old Ty. Thanks.
I don't like that math.
Hey guys, I'm much older than you, so it's okay.
You're only as old as you feel when you get up in the morning.
I feel great, man. I feel great.
Some days it's easy though.
Yeah.
But that 14 years brings a lot of wisdom. You've learned a lot. You've transitioned a lot. You're always doing education. I see you two everywhere, always educating.
Absolutely.
What is really if you could put 3 points out there, 3 tips today to that beginner full-time or that intermediate full-time photographer that's really trying to get a grasp on their business and push themselves to that next level, what would you say to them?
I would say I'll give one, and then I'll bounce it to Tim. Is go to the educational opportunities. Go to imaging. Go to. We just went to Sync in February, and that experience alone of just being with people who understand what you are going through on a daily basis. We've made lifelong friends that we randomly meet at these, conferences, and, you send them, a message on Facebook, and like there's a friend of ours now, she's in Canada, and we'll send her messages from time to time. She uses the same software we do with Blueprint. She uses Robuco and Pixnub. So, she's basically doing kind of the same thing we're doing, but in Canada, and we will kind of pitch ideas off of each other, or tell each other, you won't believe what a client said to us this week, or all of the stuff that you've heard say over the years, and or if you have a question, or whatever, just building that network of like-minded people in addition to the education portion of those conferences has been really beneficial for us. I remember we went to Imaging USA for the first time in 2022 when they had it at National Harbor, and people were describing it as imaging light because it was the first one back after COVID. I'm glad it was light because I found it overwhelming at that point, just because we had been to Photo Plus in New York a couple times, but not, it just wasn't the same vibe as what we were, with imaging. And, you sit in these educational seminars and your brain is just like melting because you're hearing all of these things and ideas and concepts from people who are speaking your language. And the one thing we like about imaging is Tim and I can have 2 completely different experiences, because I will go to business, marketing, operations, and do all of that side, because that's kind of my focus here in the business. And then Tim will go to lighting, posing, technique, whatever,
pretty much everything
else. And we get 2 completely different experiences from those.
But I think that also hit on what I would say would be the second point, would be learn the business stuff, because like with the insurance that we were talking about before, you don't want to get screwed over somehow with either your gear being stolen, somebody getting hurt during your shoot, and like the taxes and all that stuff, and just being able to protect yourself and know what to do. And then I think the final point would just be, and we touched on it a little bit, is learning your gear.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that love gear, and I have a great friend who is this way, where anything new that comes out, he's got to have it. But there are times where he's constantly asking, how do I change this on the camera, or how do I change this with the lights? I'm like, dude, slow down on the amount of gear you got and learn what you have.
Yeah.
Well, and all the memes that you say or you see where everybody's a professional until this, and then it's the picture of the dial on the manual setting. And like, learn that part.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's key, because a very how would I say it? Affordable camera in a DSLR is very powerful. It's incredibly powerful if you learn it.
Right.
You could literally run your career off that camera.
Yeah, especially in the high volume sports, because we don't need these. What's your A7 or 5? Like a bajillion megapixels. Like
64.
You don't need that for sports, because it's the end product is processed, and you don't really need that. Like a wedding.
It's normally no bigger than an 8x10. Normally.
Right, your volume sports, your biggest prints, or you're doing, obviously with online platforms, you're doing probably digital downloads.
Right.
And you're doing 8x10s and 5x7s and 3x5s. It's all small stuff. It's all small stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But I do know a lot of volume photographers that like to shoot with very high-end gear, and that's cool. But for people that are actually delving into it, you don't need that high-end gear. Do you guys use just 2 lights on your angler?
Yes.
Yes.
A main and one in the angler opposite side?
Yep.
Yeah, think about that. You can set up your background, your 2 lights, your tripod, your floor, and you're probably done in 10 or 15 minutes.
Much.
Yeah.
That's all you need to run a really successful volume sports studio.
Yeah, it's really just consistency and making sure that everything is the same from photo session to photo session. Your light has to be metered the same. Your backdrop and your light and your camera all have to be in the same places, because everyone needs to be photographed in the same position, so that when you do have, I'll say like a baseball team, for example, of like 10-year-olds, there are sometimes where 10-year-olds are like 3'8", and then you get the 10-year-old that's 5'9", and you want to make sure that those ratios are accurate when you're building that team back together.
Sure. Yeah, we talk a lot about that, the same focal plane, everything being locked down. That's a big deal. And it makes life easier for everyone when you do it right.
Yeah, we have a gray line on the floor. We have a vinyl basically a vinyl banner that we ordered from Science 365, and it has foot placements, and it has a gray line on it where toes are on that, the edge of that gray line, because then we know, the camera is always, X number of feet away from that, and then we know everyone is going to be built to scale from that.
Yeah. Well, I want to wrap it up here, and I want to ask you guys that this is the question I kind of like to end with. I don't always get to end with it, but it's my favorite. If you had a crystal ball and you could see the future of this industry,
questions on the way into the studio today, and I read the very last one. It's like, okay.
What do you think of the future of the industry? Where do you see it?
I think from our influx in or our interest in the sports world, I see more people moving towards the composites and getting a little bit further away from the traditional style, just because I think it's um, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's
You're able to be more consistent.
yeah, you can be more consistent, and I think you can do more work with the composites. If you're trying to shoot natural, environmental style, you're limited by so many other things that you can't control. Um, but industry wise, it's interesting to see how AI is playing into all of those things.
Yeah, I feel like that one's a pro and a con
Absolutely.
because there's a lot of ways to enhance your stuff with it, but then there's where's that gray line of enhancing versus completely overdoing it? Like the one that I've seen recently where you can do your AI headshots from a cell phone picture
Mm-hmm.
and they look decent. They look a little more cartoony, like not cartoony.
They're very processed.
They're very processed. I tested that as well. I think you get like 25, and I think I did it just because I'm curious.
Mhm.
I would say maybe 4 of those were believable. The other 21, I was like, wow, this is kind of a stretch.
Now, so those 4 had you in a cutoff T-shirt,
Nope.
or were they had you in a suit?
Suit.
Well, you have to.
Well,
No,
then that's not really you, then, Ty.
I know. This is me.
What I've seen, you upload like reference photos, and then it basically takes all of the data and spits out.
Yeah, I think it takes about 20, 30 minutes and it kind of jargons something back to you. But, I agree with you on the AI. The AI, the horse has left the barn. It's not going back in. We know it's here to stay.
Right.
Um, you know, Real quick, our take on AI, we have AI technologies out the wazoo at Rebuku,
Right.
but we use those for the benefit to enhance our production workflow with our employees. We like to call it real intelligence, not artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And we are going to continue. You'll see multiple changes throughout the next few years of Rebuku for the benefit of the photographer and for the benefit of our employees. I am a strong advocate for people. I am a strong advocate for human connection. And I always believe that a customer is always going to want to be able to talk to a company,
Mhm.
a real person.
Right.
I will never do anything to tarnish that, but I will enhance whatever technologies I can in the background to help our photographers and to help our clients or our employees.
Mhm.
But I'm not looking to all of a sudden go benign and here's another technology thrown out there that everyone can use and there's no one to talk to, there's no real face to it. Rebuku has always been owned by photographers for photographers, and that's how it's going to continue. Um, and you'll see some really great benefits for you guys in the next year or two. We've already made those plans, but I think we as humans have to be morally and ethically responsible with artificial intelligence, especially in a creative industry like photography and video and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think there's a place for it for sure. It's not going to replace. I tell people that Tim sees the world differently, and AI is not capable of, looking at a scenario and, you know, processing it in that capacity. It's great, but from what you were saying with the human aspect, you can use automations and assistance in those things, but your client should never know that
Right.
that was part of
Right.
it.
They still need your connection.
Correct. Yeah, and that's a big part of our when we pitch ourselves for new leagues and stuff. They're like, when you call, I answer the phone.
Yeah.
You know,
It's always
well, it's
her.
always me. Yeah, Tim will never answer the phone. So if he answers the phone, I probably died.
If you text,
If you
I'll
text,
probably
yeah,
I might be the one texting back.
right. But there's no chat bots. There is, if you send us a Facebook message, we're going to respond. Now, of course, we have the automated "thank you for your message. We'll get back to you when we can," because that is an automation that we have in place to help, basically pump the brakes on all of the messages that you get, especially this time of year when orders are going out and orders are coming in and photo days are happening and those sorts of things. But
well, and just our personal life too.
Yeah,
right.
you want to create but you got to have a personal life, and you've got to create a barrier between professional and personal.
Right. Yeah, we've gotten a little bit better at that over the years, where I'm trying to still get Tim to ignore the inbox over the weekend because we're
Yeah, I'm
photographers.
not good at that.
I know, but we're photographers, and I worked in healthcare for 15 years prior to working with the studio full time. So when I worked in healthcare, those things are urgent. People's health and medications and injuries and whatever, that is urgent. A lot of those things can't wait. People are not going to die or have an adverse effect because their photographer didn't respond to their email that they sent at 11 p.m. on Friday night.
Mhm.
All of that can wait until Monday morning. None of this stuff is life or death. So trying to, and that's another recommendation that I will give for others that are starting out, is start building those barriers and breaks and things.
You got to have office hours.
Right. You have to have office hours. And a lot of times we will be here at the studio working, but no one knows we're here, and I want it that way. Like, I don't want people just randomly showing up and hoping that they can pick up their photos, because the studio at this point is basically an extension of our home because we're here so much. But having those boundaries is important because you will get burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys remember Blair Phillips?
Mm-mm.
Used to be in the industry. He was a well-known portrait photographer. He was actually kind of a mentor to me back in the day. But he still does school and sports volume, but you don't really see him at the shows anymore. Him and his wife Susie. But Blair and I were talking one day, and he's like, "Hey, Ty, have you ever?" Because we were talking about hours and barriers and stuff like that. And I think I was still in some of the learning process. And he said, "Have you ever called a dentist at 9 p.m. on a Friday and gotten a response either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?" He's like, "No, they'll get with you on Monday. They'll schedule you accordingly." He goes, "And that's no different than us. That's how we should run our business." So that kind of clicked with me when he said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you're, we tell people that because you are a small business owner, you are never off. We tell people we're just less on. So over the weekend, we're less on. We, might respond to a text message just because it's super easy and there's no real, there's no face-to-face or verbal, interaction. So it's a little less intimate, but it can wait.
Well,
it can wait.
One of the downfalls too is Google doesn't let you put in appointment only on your office hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've had some where we have it set up, I think 10 to 5 at the studio each day. But then we've gotten calls from parents that the photo day is here at the studio and it's at 6 o'clock, and they call us and they're like, "But it says you're closed."
Google says you're closed.
Yeah, I get that. That is a glitch with Google.
Yeah, they don't have a by appointment only option. So if you're listening to Google, we need that option for
They're always listening, Jen.
where you want them to listen. So
Right.
I'll start getting sponsored ads for things that I was thinking about, but they won't change appointment only for your studio.
Yeah.
You just need that, barrier. Because people will, they are thinking about it at 11 o'clock at night after they put the kids to bed, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I should email the photographer about X, Y, and Z," and then I don't need to get back to you
Right. And I think one thing we fail to understand is that client may not be expecting a reach back until Monday.
Right.
You know what I mean? They may be saying, I realize I'm sending this after hours. I'll probably hear from them Monday.
Because they had a moment, they thought about it. Oh yeah, I should ask X, Y, and Z, send, and then it's in our court to respond. So, and then some people do
the complete opposite of that.
All right, but that's really in any industry at this
Sure.
point. And sometimes just making people aware of that in a tactful way is helpful. Like, hey, just so you know, like, it's just the two of us for the most part. Like, we'll have photo day assistants to help with photos and posing and that sort of thing, but 95% of everything is done by the two of us. So there's only so many hours in a day. There's only, so many days in a week. Just give us a little grace and we'll get back to you on that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. I think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to see if our pup Caesar would our speed bump here.
Your mascot?
Yeah.
Caesar.
Alpha, come here.
Dude, you that tired?
Yeah, they had
That's no part of this.
They had a tough weekend
Alpha, come here.
Of peopling, so it really.
That's okay. I got 3 of them asleep in a bed next to me, so it's all good.
Yeah, they're pretty big bumps on the log, but they're part of our studio brand. People will ask us, are the dogs going to be there? So they're people will sometimes, you feel a little jaded yourself because people are asking more so about your dogs than about you personally.
Yeah, I think my favorite sign I saw was dogs welcome, people tolerated.
Correct. Yeah. So Alpha decided he was gonna wake up. So
you're gonna just lay down, aren't you?
Yeah. So
guys, well,
yeah.
Just want to say thank you. Thank you, family there.
Yep.
And it was good information. And guys, we're going to continue these podcasts. I've got several more coming up. I want to thank the Orendorffs for taking time today. It's much appreciated. Guys, have a nice break for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Try to relax a little bit.
We're going to try.
And we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Take care.
All right, guys. Bye, Tim.
See you.
Bye, Jim.